From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We are joined, as always, with our super producer, Della, the Tennessee Pal Fagan. Most importantly, you are you. You are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know if you are joining us. The evening this listener mail program publishes. Let us be the first to welcome you to July 24th. It's happening. It's listener mail. We can't wait to share some of your stories with our fellow listeners. Before we do anything, guys, I think we have some housekeeping to do. Remember, several years ago, we were joking about a conspira cruise. All these people were going on cruises, and we wanted to go on a cruise as well.
It's true. I've never been on one. Ben, are you gonna break the news?
We have the breaking news. That's right. Dylan, can we get pre-rutabaga? Can we get a breaking news sound cue? We don't have all the details yet, but stay tuned because it looks like Susan Bullen's second favorite podcast may be going to the high seas. For now, we are going to explore things around the world. We're going to talk about the weather in a couple of different ways. We're going to talk about decoys, which is just the way I say decoys now for some reason. We're going to bust some myths that came up in previous episodes. We're going to have flares of a solar variety. But before we do any of that, because this is listener mail, we proudly present some rutabagas.
Thanks to rutabagas, I've gotten my life back on track.
Ask your doctor if rutabagas is right for you. Rutabagas may cause spontaneous podcasting or an urge to take up rutabagas. Consult your doctor if these symptoms last for more than the length of a listener mail episode.
Thanks, rutabagas.
Just incredible.
Oh,
staggering.
Just put it on repeat, baby. That was incredible.
Oh my God. And we have returned with a message from you. Yes, you. In this case, the message is the messenger. It's from the messenger anyway. And this is what the messenger has to say. Good day, fellow conspiracy realists. You are welcome to use my message and pseudonym on the air. Thank you, the messenger. First off, I wanted to say how much I appreciate the show and all that you put into it. I can always count on you to give objective, grounded information on controversial topics. Thank you, the messenger. We do try. On your show, you often talk about the vilification of recreational drug use. One thing... I guess we do, maybe. We try to be even-handed about it. Maybe not. We're certainly not vilifying, but there are those who do. One thing that was prevalent when I was a teen was the concept that if you take a psychedelic drug, that you could have a flashback at any time in the future for any reasons, like a random slip back into a psychedelic state without the catalyst of a drug. I'm curious if there is any sand to this. In my earlier years, I did acid a few times. Later in life, I applied for a position as an LEO. And Ben pointed off mic, that is not your sign. That is a law enforcement officer. Never heard it put that way before. And was immediately rejected because I was honest about my past drug use. The interviewing officer basically told me that because of the potential for flashbacks, I was ineligible. I've heard this is more urban myth than anything fact-based, and I was hoping that you could shed some light on this. I think this is probably something that all three of us have a thing or two to say about and has crossed our desks over the years. Certainly was something that was used in the preaching of drug abstinence through the popular DARE program of the 1990s that I think all of us were probably students of, where you would have sometimes a scared straight type situation where you'd have like a former drug addict come to your school and talk to you. Maybe that was just my school, but I distinctly remember a former meth user coming to my school and describing the day he realized he'd gone beyond the pale when he looked at himself in the mirror and saw a skeleton staring back at him. And in my childish brain, I thought that was really scary that all of a sudden his reflection in the mirror was a spooky skeleton. I did not understand that he was describing an emaciated appearance.
The symbol, the figurative language, right, was lost in translation. I loved Dare. You guys know I'm a sucker for propaganda. I'm so vulnerable to it. I'm the kind of guy who will be driving and I'll hear an advertisement for a Whopper and I will take them at faith value. And I'll be like, oh, wow. Not face value, faith value. Oh, yes. Wow. When's the last time I had a Whopper? And then boom, I'm there. I won multiple Dare awards for writing essays. And then like so many other Dare kids, no judgment, folks, I went down the Sith Lord path pretty quickly. Because they teach you how to do it.
They teach you how to do it. They present you, we've talked about this, with this like fake prop food drug suitcase
trifold thing, like a science project.
Super odd. I actually I have a Dare t-shirt that I got at a thrift recently, and somebody was asking me about it at a coffee shop. It said something about keeping your kids off drugs, but great logo. There was even a video game associated with the presidential program for drug abstinence. I'm not getting the name right, but it was a game called Narc. Do you guys remember cabinet arcade game Narc?
I do. Wow, I really liked that game.
It was propaganda.
That's strange. I wonder why. Because I listened to my Dare instructors and I followed their very rules and order, and I followed them until this day. Guys, I continue to dare to keep myself off drugs.
Dare to keep a kid off drugs. Dare to give a kid some hope. What a banger, dude. Step aside, DJ Khaled, or do a remix. Yeah. I was at the talent show too.
Amazing. You should have been, and I hope you won, sir.
Y'all, I gotta say, I might be misremembering. I swear there was a video game that had a tie-in for like an anti-drug propaganda thing, and I thought it was Narc. And in my mind, I'm picturing like an image before the game started of like an anti-drug kind of campaign. Yeah. But maybe I'm not Narc, seeing anything about
the game. The game, yeah. Like
it was, right?
Yes. It's NARC 1988.
Right.
It's a run and gun. It was fantastic. You had
made by Midway, the same folks that brought us Mortal Kombat.
It had the military typeface with the blood splashed across it. Very Apocalypse 100%. Now.
No, I'm not questioning the existence of the game. I'm just questioning my memory of it having a propagandistic approach. And it did have a say no to drugs campaign slide at the beginning. But maybe
winners don't use drugs. That was on a lot of arcade games.
It was. And so maybe in my mind, I associated this with more than it was. But that's neither here nor there. What we are talking about today is the question of whether an acid flashback is a real thing. And whether that is, if it is a real thing, is it the product of some physical trace of the chemical that remains in the body? The urban legend part of it, y'all, that I always remember is that it's stored in your spinal fluid.
Oh, I remember that one. I don't think that is all the way true, but I do know there is some sand to it. Looking into this for reasons in the past, it's called hallucinogen persisting perception disorder, or HPPD. But I think it's obvious that not every person who tries a hallucinogen or tries LSD will be automatically consigned to having this disorder in the future.
No, Ben, and I bet you we're looking at the same study, flashback phenomena after administration of LSD and psilocybin in controlled studies with healthy participants. Also a banger, maybe a psych rock band name, a little long. We'll have to workshop that one. But to read you the abstract, this is from a cavalcade of excellent researchers and was published in the National Library of Medicine, National Center for Biotechnology Information Journal. And here's how it goes. LSD and psilocybin are increasingly used in phase 1 trials and evaluated as therapeutic agents for mental disorders. So this is like looking into this phenomenon in the context of how will this affect therapeutic applications of these substances as they become more and more prevalent. The phenomenon of recurring drug-like experiences after the acute substance effects have worn off was described for both substances and especially attributed to LSD. According to the DSM-5, the persisting and distressing manifestation of these experiences is called hallucinogen persisting perception disorder, or HPPD. Data on both conditions is very limited. So this is this study from 2022 attempting to kind of put a little more meat on the bones of this urban legend, may or may not be urban legend. What they found was that 13 out of 142 subjects reported recurring drug-like experiences. LSD, 7, psilocybin, 2, and both 4. The reported phenomena were predominantly mild and perceived as neutral to pleasant. Flashbacks were mostly of visual nature, lasted for seconds to minutes, and occurred within a week after the last drug administration. 2 subjects reported distressing experiences that subsided spontaneously. 1 subject reported brief and pleasant visual perception changes, which occurred for 7 months. None of the subjects reported impairment in their daily lives. None of the cases met DSM-5 criteria for HPPD.
Yeah, this is interesting because as fellow hallucinats may recall, LSD metabolizes so quickly in the human body that
it doesn't show up in a drug test.
Yeah, it's
or a urine test, rather.
Yeah, it's excreted in the urine within like a day. This is where we see something fascinating because HPPD is linked to habitual LSD use, but we know it is not due to the buildup of that molecule within the body because it leaves the body so quick. Your body is an Airbnb for LSD.
That's wow. An Airbnb for LSD is fun to say, Ben. I do believe that you can detect LSD use in a much more expensive hair follicle test.
Yeah, I believe that's great.
Another thing that contributed to the urban legend aspect of the substance remaining in the body, maybe even in the form of like in your hair. And then somehow it can just one day pop and boom, you're back, in over the rainbow. But I think we can very safely say, Ben, with some certainty that aspect is not true. However, results may vary as to whether past psychedelic use may or may not come back in some way, shape, or form. It would seem from this study, not necessarily with the 100% probability of haunting you and ruining your life.
Yeah, scene setting. Be careful, right? Moderation in all things, even moderation. Shout out Dead Prez. And Dylan, this may be new information to you, dear friend, because Tennessee has disclosed to us that, quote, for silly reasons, he did not successfully graduate from DARE, end quote. We got your back, man. We'll help you.
Was it a thing you graduated from? Did you have to sign a pledge?
You have to sign a pledge.
So many questions.
It varies state by state. I've got the T-shirt too. I love that T-shirt. But I remember you had to, you had to sign something, right? Like a promise that you understood that you weren't going to do drugs. And then in some schools, you had to do a sing-along too. Did you have like the DARE choir?
I don't know about the DARE choir.
You didn't have the DARE choir? You would have been great at it, man.
I just had Scruff, McGruff, Chicago, Illinois.
I love that.
60652.
Remember,
that's a good Scruff McGruff impression.
Remember when we did that story? I found that story. We were talking about DARE again. One of the actors, like the main actor who played Scruff, got arrested on a bevy of charges.
Yeah,
he had some high grade weaponry and some high grade weed as well. I don't know if he was in the costume when he got arrested, but hope springs eternal.
They weren't going to use it. It was in the evidence locker.
Thank goodness. Can you imagine Scruff McGruff all hopped up on goofballs?
Yes,
I don't know what that is.
He entered a dark period. It's just a generic term for being really high.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know where I got it from. Some comedy sketch. I will say that I did just Google or did a little bit of a digging on our nostalgia about Narc, the 80s arcade game. And while it did carry anti-drug messages, it was not inherently anti-drug propaganda or linked up with any of these organizations. So that was that. What do you call that, guys? That selective memory?
Mandela effect?
Maybe Mandela effect, but it's certainly like I have a distinct memory of experiencing things a certain way. And then when presented with the facts of the matter, that they did not necessarily go down the way my brain has created the story of my life around.
Because it's a new memory each time you remember it.
That's very true, 100%. And I will just add that Nintendo did reissue the game for the NES. And they actually removed all drug references from the game. What does that leave you with in a game like Narc?
So the junkies and the drug dealers are like the Goombas, right?
That's right.
In Mario. So what are the junkies junked on? This is like looking back at Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and realizing they were supposed to be stoners, but no one talks about it in the film.
They also use some pretty problematic language. Can I just, if anyone hasn't seen any of the Bill and Ted movies, the first one in particular, they use some homophobic slurs quite a few times.
Yeah, and spoiler, folks, not an historically accurate depiction of Genghis Khan.
Or Napoleon.
But also it's a comedy. And Narc is interesting because I believe it was very controversial because it was seen as an ultra-violent video game.
First 32-bit processing board, guys. Pretty exciting.
It's one of those ones that had the slightly photorealistic sprites or whatever the word is, where it was like this is the company, by the way, Midway, that brought us Mortal Kombat. And if you look at the character designs in Narc, it is that like they clearly filmed a character doing like some punchy punch moves, and then they transmitted it into this like 2D side-scrolling situation. So you can see the beginnings of Mortal Kombat games in Narc.
Double the 16-bit we were all used to at the arcade machines. Narc.
What did they cost back in the day? Was it just 20? It was 25 cents, right? You could get a game or you get tokens.
For the basic ones. The fancy ones were 50 cents. Oh my gosh. Back in my day, as he whittles into the darkness, we would have a rhubarb pie and a quarter could buy you 30 minutes on your favorite game of video.
Your favorite video machine.
On the Nickelodeon. But this does have sand, I think we're finding here, Noel, because there is a possibility to have something like a flashback. It's just been so embellished, right, and propagandized that people may believe it's far more common than it actually is. And I bet you if we go into some further studies, we would find that HPPD probably has some coinciding variables related to pre-existing mental health.
No question. And I think that's a big part of it too, Ben. I'm glad you brought that up because we do often see LSD use blamed for people kind of going cuckoo or whatever, like losing it and doing self-destructive behavior. And while that certainly can be the case on a heroic dose of psychedelics, we do often see intersection between pre-existing predisposition to schizophrenia or much more extreme forms of mental illness that are almost triggered by LSD use or psychedelic use. And we also see that even in marijuana. We've talked about these like really extreme cases where folks take marijuana and have these kind of like psychotic breaks. That is another example of maybe something that's triggering a pre-existing condition that's sort of lurking there beneath the surface.
We've talked before specifically about psilocybin and how it recreates neural connections in your brain when you take that substance. LSD appears to do something similar, not exactly in the same way, same mechanism, but you can totally see why if you are reconnecting like memories, if you're reconnecting sense memories and things like that in your brain when you take these substances, then all it would take is to re-encounter a specific sensation and then it could hit the rest of those neurons. Then all of a sudden you're experiencing that thing again, or at least the effects of that thing. It is really weird to see how long specifically LSD has been studied for these things. Because in all these journals, the big takeaway, at least that I'm seeing, is that these are every single one a subjective experience. So it's impossible for anyone to actually test exactly what's happening. And how could you make correlation between any two people that are both experienced or reporting to experience these things? It's impossible. It's subjective. So you can just say, well, here are commonalities potentially.
Right. How do we quantify? We need some brain studies. Ethics aside, and I'm sorry, I know we're going long, but this is going to be interesting. Ethics aside, so I'm saying that in the front, okay? Nobody
Heard.
get mad.
No.
If ethics were not a thing, it would be fascinating, and I argue worthwhile science to inculcate or create some of those triggers that you're talking about, Matt. So have someone in, as you said, Noel, on a heroic dose of LSD or another hallucinogen monitored in a lab, and then expose them to distinctive smells, right? Or to other triggers.
Full circle.
Make a Manchurian candidate of a hallucinatory experience, and then just see what can happen. You know what I mean? Again, ethics aside, this is hypothetical. I yield my
What
time.
you're talking about is a little more like a triggered hypnosis almost. Like it reminds me of the film Old Boy. Without spoiling anything at all, there's a certain sound cue that happens that brings back a certain state that was rehearsed over and over and over again. And I sometimes think of the idea of an acid flashback as, like the way people talk about Vietnam flashbacks. Like you were re-experiencing something either profound or traumatic. In this case, depending on your situation with psychedelics, it could be either of those. Whereas the Vietnam and those types of traumatic flashbacks are much more associated with a traumatic negative experience that then comes back and all of a sudden you think you're there again. But I think a lot has been made of that as well. Mm-hmm. And that there's much more goes into the idea of experiencing a traumatic flashback than the way it's portrayed in pop culture. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, bit of a ramble there, but it does make me think of that. So thanks a lot, The Messenger, for getting this going on this. I thought we might all have something to chime in about on this subject. Let's take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsors, and then come back with more messages from you.
And we've returned. Guys, I'm not going to set this up at all, but it's going to tie back to some stuff we've discussed in the past. Here we go. This is a message from Big Luke.
Hi, you guys can call me, I guess, Big Luke. I just read an article. I saw this on Yahoo News. You might be able to Google it. They are using robotic rabbits to hunt down and capture pythons in Florida. Now, I know that that's not necessarily, big conspiracy, but you guys have talked a lot about AI. You've talked a lot about robotics, and that might be something that you guys would like to talk about on your strange news, because I find it definitely strange. And when you look at the picture of the cute little rabbit that they're using, little robotic bunny, I think you guys would find that interesting. So again, using robotic rabbits to hunt down pythons in the Florida Everglades, I think that you guys would find that very interesting. Big Luke, talk to you later.
Yeah, agreed. The pythons are an invasive species, as Big Luke, you know well. They're also, and I'm sure you saw this, Matt, they're getting spotted in Georgia. So
yeah.
Anything we can do. I say that as an animal lover, but they're just in the wrong neighborhood. Anything we can do to mitigate.
Yes, woe be to you, tiny creatures in the Okefenokee swamp.
Woe be.
Yeah.
Woe betide. Yeah.
Pythons are serious, guys. And when we're going up against something serious, you know what we need? Adorable, robotic, furry creatures.
I'm just laughing because for a moment I flash back, you could say, to a world where there's like a dare program for pythons. And you're the official talking to the kids, and they're like, "What? They got no thumbs?" And you're like, "Shut up! Pythons are serious, okay?"
Well, what if I'm trying to educate the baby pythons to watch out for these robotic rabbits? You're like, they kind of hop, but different. It's hard to know until you get close and you sniff them with your tongue, but then it's too late.
Whoa! Definitely avoid.
How do you be sniffing? That's amazing.
Definitely avoid rabbit escalation.
Hey,
Something like that.
There we go. Yeah. Let's jump to USA Today, because we don't get to cite them very often, but they've got a fun little read here from July 17th titled, Meet the Robo Bunny. This tiny, furry robot is taking on invasive pythons in Florida. And it has an image and a video that is currently not working on my browser, but it's got an image of this teeny little bunny. It's adorable. It's fluffy. It's furry. It's got eyes. It looks like a bunny rabbit, probably from far enough away. And if you put the right scents or something on it, if you just sprayed around it a little bit, I bet you could trick a python. And it appears that that's what these things can do. According to USA Today, they spin, they shake, they move randomly, and and they were created with, quote, more than a decade of scientific review that began with a 2012 study that transported rabbits into Everglades National Park to see if and how quickly they would become prey.
It's the movement too, right? Because this the python, just as a life form, is very movement sensitive. So I feel like that might even be more important than a scent. But this is real science. I don't know, Matt, where are you landing on this? Are you for it? Are you against it? Is it a more information needed situation for you?
Well, as far as the robotic bunnies go, it does make me think of a certain video game franchise where there are robotic animals all about. You guys remember this one, Horizon?
Which one is this?
Zero Dawn.
Okay, yeah, that's
that.
right. With you're sort of like a futuristic native people kind of situation. That was a fun one.
Yeah, but
Very beautiful.
And in that world, humanity creates robotic versions of many of the primary animals to carry out the tasks that the now extinct biological animals would have done. In this case, the little robotic bunnies are simply being used to get the pythons to a specific area where someone who is trained to get a python and theoretically, at least the way it's shown with the Python challenge, dispatch it once you encounter a python. But, you know, very different from Horizon Zero Dawn. But it is still weird to think that we would need something like this, or we could even make use of something like this to any real effect, I guess. But it does seem to be working, though we don't know exactly how well yet.
Right, because it's still early days or initial hops at this point. We do see some interesting comparisons, Big Luke. You may have also clocked this. In theory, or I guess in principle, this is not that different from a scarecrow, right? You're impersonating another thing in a natural environment to induce a behavior. I've got to share this thing with you guys. The U.S. Army has deployed plastic coyotes on four-wheelers let me put it in the chat. You'll love this picture. In an effort to disperse wildlife. And these are, just spoiler, they're not as good as the rabbits. Actually, let me just share this so you guys can see the picture and react to it. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Can you guys see it?
Wow, that's like something from a sketch comedy situation.
It's like
they're like those, they're like the really bad plastic decoys, but they're on like these go-kart things. That is hilarious.
Like lawnmowers, like coyote-themed lawnmowers. And apparently, because of the visual cue, and again, this will tie back to the rabbits, because of the movement, it can induce this behavior. Do we know whether this will be deployed in other parts of the U.S.? I'm thinking specifically of South Georgia.
Maybe. Do we know this?
We don't.
Okay, we do not know this, but that would be a great idea. You can see images of them. They several times they've been deployed, at least visually here from USA Today. They've been deployed inside these little plastic containers where you can see the movements of these little robotic bunnies, and then it's kind of like a trap set up where the python could get in there and wrap itself around the little robotic bunny, but it would get stuck inside. That's when you'd have the professional come out and dispatch the snake. But guys, the biggest thing, I think we've talked about it before, but the Florida Python Challenge,
Yes.
The 2025 version of it just ended on July 20th at 5 p.m. But this is a crazy thing where the folks in Florida decided, hey, we're going to get together, and for a brief period of time, this time it was from July 11th to the 20th, we're going to challenge people to register for this thing and then go out and kill as many pythons as they possibly can. And the winner is going to get 10,000 buckaroos. Pretty great.
Well, yes. For now, yes, asterisk caveat, because this reminds me immediately, can't be the only one, of what's called a perverse incentive or the Cobra effect. If you remember that story, that's when there was such a problem with cobras in parts of India that they essentially issued something like the Python Challenge in a couple of regions. And the idea was that there would be a bounty on cobras. So the more you kill, the more money you get per cobra
So people
head.
just started like pumping out cobras so that they could like collect the bounty. And it was like a problem that kind of exacerbated itself or made a new problem. It was a solution to a previous problem that became an even bigger problem.
A perverse incentive. So there's a non-zero chance that this could happen with the Florida Python Challenge.
Well,
still, overall, it's a good thing.
It's been hailed as the, quote, most effective management strategy in the history of the issue, according to, that's a quote by Mike Kirkland, an animal biologist.
In the history of the issue.
Yeah.
Cool.
Again, invasive pythons in Florida. And it's a fascinating thing. You can head on over to flpythonchallenge.org to learn about the challenge and the winners every year and all kinds of good stuff like that. The biggest thing, to your point, Ben, like, could this get out of control? Well, just head on over to the Florida Python Challenge competition rules page, which includes everything you need to know to get registered and all of the different rules per location and all the different rules for how to dispatch with the thing. And it's pretty intense and it's a lot. So hopefully you couldn't get around all the red tape to just bring in a bunch of pythons. I don't know.
Pythons are so cool. I mean, if you could raise enough of them to the Cobra effect, check out, that's an episode of Ridiculous History. Check it out. If you could raise enough of them to goose the numbers and still make a profit from winning the competition, I don't know. How expensive is it to grow pythons at scale? I bet at scale. Sorry. I bet somebody knows. Also, Matt, politics aside, that Python football looks sick.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yes.
Python skin football, everybody. You can look at that too. Just head on over to the Python Challenge.
Dare to dream.
Guys, I've got one more message, and we're not going to get fully into it because it's way too much to unpack in one of these. I hereby suggest we do a full episode on it.
Sure.
I think we've had enough time now to do some real digging into the subject. So let's hear quickly from the Lord of Enjoyment.
Hello, this is the Lord of Enjoyment, also known as Millennial Trucker. I wanted you guys to talk about the whole thing with the last flood in Texas where water went through the camp and everything, and how allegedly they did cloud seeding right in that area, like within 2 days prior, and the company literally being called Rainmaker and them saying that they had no effect on it, but it's like, come on. The company's called Rainmaker. You're doing cloud seeding right where that catastrophic flood happens, like within 2 days. I don't know. Thought you guys would like talking about that. Interested to see what you guys say. Thank you. Enjoy.
Yeah.
We will enjoy.
It's been on my mind too, man. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a really tragic subject. It's another one of those things that has been heavily politicized. If you search around on the internet, you will see all sorts of colorful political figures out there saying things like, oh, this is clearly done by cloud seeding, including Michael Flynn. Just look up who that is. There are lots of people out there in prominent positions putting forth this concept that cloud seeding that we've discussed many times on this show had a direct effect on the flooding that occurred in Texas there. And we found a bunch of links. We found a bunch of stories about this, specifically one person named Augustus Dorico, who has a company. This 25-year-old man has a company called Rainmaker that specifically does cloud seeding in that area. And you can even find, I've got it right here, their official U.S. Department of Commerce, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA Form 17-4, where they talk about specifically where they're cloud seeding just a couple of days before the floods, which does make you go, if you are at all attuned to look for this kind of stuff, it gives you pause and it makes you go, wow, that's weird.
Right.
So you can understand why people like Michael Flynn and prominent human beings are saying things like this. But at the same time, is there actual evidence that cloud seeding of this type could have an effect? That's when you go to the meteorologists who are all saying probably no. Actually, yeah, definitely no. But at the same time, it's very weird. So I suggest we dive deep into this and talk about it at length.
Agreed. Yeah, because this concept has been resurrected with the recent news, but there's a lot more past the headlines. And I think you make an excellent point about the danger of politicization there. While we're working on that episode, folks, please check out our earlier episode from a few years back. Well, I can't remember how long ago. Can human beings create disaster? The science there is pretty solid. Cloud seeding is a real thing. We've talked about it. It's been deployed in multiple places. We'll get into the history again. We'll talk about some of the real world cloud seeding conspiracies, such as in China and Southeast Asia, especially during the Indochina and Vietnam conflict. Thank you so much, Lord of Enjoyment. Yeah, we're on the case. Ooh, I feel like Scruff McGruff. Rough. Yeah.
Well, because in our previous explorations, we don't want to spoil it. Go listen to the episode. But what we came away from that was that cloud seeding itself isn't going to create the storm situation.
No.
Right? But theoretically, could cloud seeding, when that area that has been seeded encounters a weather front that is a large storm that is going to drop water, could that affect the amount of water that actually falls in that specific area? That I don't know the answer to. So that's what we're going to be exploring, I think.
Yeah, agreed. It's more like, is this a buff or an enhancement? And if so, to what degree? Another thing that a lot of the headlines are missing right now, the basics of weather modification, or cloud seeding in particular, is that it is a very imperfect science at this point, at least the stuff we can publicly prove exists. And people are forgetting that weather is a gestaltic thing. It is all one interconnected system across the planet. Beat me here, Dylan. Nobody is making new water. They're taking it from somewhere else. And when
why can't we make more water? That would solve everything. How come no one's figured?
Economy is a religion, unfortunately. I'm with you. But because you're subtracting and adding from different things, because you're essentially moving things around, you could affect weather in very unintended ways. You could, for instance, let's say this way, like with weather fronts or with moving air currents and stuff, you could say we're modifying the weather in some place that is not Texas. Has nothing to do with Texas in the minds of the rainmakers. But because of this interconnected system, it ends up affecting a different place. This is just spitballing. This is actually, you know what? Sorry, guys. I'm turning it into an advertisement for an episode I'm already very excited about.
Yes, me too, dude. Everyone, in preparation for this episode, go back and watch the film The Rainmaker. Not the 1997 Matt Damon, Danny DeVito hit, but the 1956 ultra smash film, The Rainmaker, featuring Katharine Hepburn and Burt Lancaster. It's beautiful. It's about a man that says he can, do things with the weather. It's worth your time.
Oh, man. Did we do a dowsing episode? I swear we did.
We talked about it during an episode where there's a bunch of things together, I think.
Okay. I'm still mystified by that. Let us know if dowsing is real too. And while you're on the internet following Matt's excellent recommendation, please, of course, check out The Rain King by Counting Crows. I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, I know there are a lot of references while we're marathon recording today, but I was stuck in a place for a second recently where the only audio I had access to was a Counting Crows CD. We don't have to get into it, but that's where all these references are coming from.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm with you. Recovering the satellites, huge for me.
I'm in Durrett's recovery right now, guys. One day at a time.
Oh, yeah. And also, it's not lost on us the tragedy that, all of this, the reason why we're talking about this.
Absolutely.
Right? So do keep that in mind in your travels throughout. And you can also see why that tragedy would fuel such political turmoil in just the subject alone.
And the other, I think, well said, Matt. And the other big question here is a question of precedent, right? What will happen in the future as well, and how can we as civilization better prepare ourselves for these situations?
Yep. As we've got more, I was looking at the forecast as we're recording this on Monday, July 21st. There's a ton of water set to come down across the Northeast and part of the Southeast too. So just everybody stay vigilant. And that's all for me. Thank you so much, Big Luke. Thank you so much, Lord of Enjoyment.
We'll take a break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll return. And we have returned. Let's stay with the weather for a moment here. We recently republished an episode that I think we all enjoyed with a sort of grabby title. Mass Solar Excitability, Slaves to the Sun, in which it's part of our exploration on how weather may influence or affect the behavior of living organisms. And, this being the kind of show that it is, we focused on humans. Immensely fascinating species. 4 out of 5, I would say. 4 out of 5 stars, the humans.
I'm going to go lower.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna go lower. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking like recent humans or their early work?
Like, I don't know, a couple hundred years.
Okay. I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
3.5. You guys, great, tough. All right, but that's why we make a good team. And joining the team this evening is the Cacoa Connoisseur. The Cacoa Connoisseur. First off, great name. 5 out of 5. No notes. You say
I'm gonna give it a 3.5. I'm just kidding. You're right.
Man, you're tough. Cacoa Connoisseur, you say, hey, Ben, Matt, and Noel, love the episode, as well as the listener mail about solar activity affecting human behavior. It's a super intriguing idea, and I can see why it grabs people's attention. There are some weird correlations out there. For example, some studies have noticed small spikes in anxiety or sleep disruption during geomagnetic storms. A few even suggested a slight increase in heart attacks or hospital visits during solar flare activity. And then you've got older theories from folks like Alexander Chivesky, nice reference there, Cacao, who claimed wars and revolutions peaked during sunspot maximums. Interesting stuff. But here's the thing, says Cacao, none of it holds up to real scientific scrutiny. Most of the research is either outdated, inconsistent, or just plain correlation without causation. No one has been able to show that solar activity directly causes any of these things. The data just doesn't support it in a reliable way. Still, a fun rabbit hole. I appreciate you guys giving it some airtime. That balance of curiosity and skepticism is why I keep coming back. Oof, I love that reference. I love that. I love that you're referencing Alex here, and I hate to admit it, but we are ethically required to. Yeah, the data is not supporting a lot of Chizhevsky's arguments.
It's not.
But it feels like it does.
Yeah.
It really feels like it does. This guy was so smart. He is the founder of heliobiology, which is exactly what we're talking about with Cacao.
Sounds
here.
Smart.
Yeah, the study of the sun's effect on biology. I don't know. I feel like the weather does affect people. I think it's a matter of scale.
Well, I know the heat affects me. I know this firsthand very recently, just how much it puts me in a sore mood. My gosh.
You went through 2 weeks of soup, bro.
I did. Interior and exterior. You couldn't get away from the soup. You're just in it. Oh.
Yeah. It was funny that first off, I'm glad. I'm so happy that situation has improved. And I got to tell you guys, when I got back recently, it hit me. I forgot just how intense it is here at this time of year.
Today it's like 95 right now.
Even at night.
It's rude. It's just rude.
It's offensive. It insists upon itself. I'm also, as we know, I'm very anti-sun. I think it had its day, but it does seem like something we're going to return to, this conversation about solar flares and their possible effects upon human behavior at scale. And the reason this is going to come up again, we're predicting this, is because we are entering a solar maximum. You guys remember this? It's coming up.
Yep.
Doesn't sound good. I don't think I know about the solar maximum, but I would not be surprised if we are in it or approaching it.
This is one of those examples we love on this show. It's one of those great, weird things about existing in this galactic neighborhood that everybody, like, we figured it out and we just kind of accept it. We don't know why it happens. We can't control it. We can't do diddly about it. So we just sort of ignore that every 11 years at the height of the solar cycle, the sun's magnetic poles, they just flip.
Yep. And it does weird stuff. Hey, if you head on over to spaceweather.com right now, you'll learn about the little sunspots that are just hanging out, low solar activity. But each one of those sunspots have a pretty good % chance of sending out one of those X flares that we've talked about on the show before that do terrible things to the Earth. If our magnetosphere happens to be pushed away by enough of the solar energy, like the wind, it's no wonder solar biology is a thing, because you see what tremendous effect all the different things that the sun puts out can have on the planet. Why would it not have an effect on each individual little buggy-sized thing walking around on it? That's us.
Yeah, it feels true, right? Also, I get so excited. I almost have like a feeling about this. Roll the dice. Sun versus people. Let's go, right? So, it is true, though. That's a great point about the CMEs, the sunspots. These sunspots are cooler and darker areas on the surface of the sun, and they proliferate during the solar maximum, which means that there is a higher amount of solar activity, which means first humans can learn more about what happens on the sun, the closest star. But it also means, as you said, the likelihood of possible shenanigans increases. CMEs, like the thing that brought down part of Canada's electric grid back in the 1980s. This stuff can happen. There's no way to prevent it.
Yeah. And it's crazy too, because it's a fascinating subject. I'm so glad we did those past episodes, because guys, I haven't stopped thinking about the sun on a daily basis now. And I wear out spaceweather.com. They're like, stop coming here. You're using too much traffic.
Are you doing a DDoS?
Yeah, seriously. Because the CME that we're talking about here that we've discussed in the past, the actual like plasma stuff that the sun can shoot out at Earth, if it happens to just exactly line up with where the Earth is going to be when that stuff, lands in the position of where the Earth is going to be. But the X flares and stuff, I think about those sunspots as little geysers of potentiality. They're just waiting. They each one has like a percentage chance of shooting out just a ton of energy. Not even a CME, just a bunch of solar energy.
Right.
And the current one has, guys, an unstable beta gamma magnetic field, and there's a 10% chance that an X flare is going to break the quiet and shoot out.
I think of it. A similar analogy would be pimples.
Ooh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes they just pop.
No!
Sometimes they go away, right? I don't have much personal experience with that, but that's a way that I understand it. If you think of the sun's surface like a skin, like a sphere of skin, nothing weird. We also know that, to your question here, Cacao, we know that there are specific ways in which solar activity does demonstrably affect human and animal behavior. It may not be quite on the level of what our buddy Alex was arguing for, but we know, for instance, that after being deprived of sunlight for some certain threshold of time, people will experience a lowering of mood. They'll tend to be more depressed. They'll be sad, whatever that means. But there's also seasonal affective disorder. That's why in some countries closer to the poles, school children have regular doses of ultraviolet light. You can look this up. The studies are there, and it's actually pretty cool. We also know that, of course, the heat makes people crazy. There's a reason it's part of the reason crime often tends to go up in U.S. cities during the summer. Another part is that people aren't in school. Just to point it out, not to be a narc. And we also know that in addition to happiness or sadness, or self-reported experiences of those states, we know that the weather and the activity of the sun has played a tremendous role in the history of human civilization. Oh, the eclipse, God is mad, time to kill some POWs, right? Oh, a solar flare, God is happy or God is mad. Let's argue about what that means.
Yep. Mercury is retrograding. Oh, snap. Whatever thing you got to do. Or just blame it on Mercury.
You just got to watch out.
I'm sorry, officer. As you know, Mercury is in retrograde, and I assure you, I don't know this python. It was in the car when I got here.
His name is Monty.
I don't understand, guys. Yeah. I'm still in space weather. Can we do a whole episode on this new interstellar object? Because our boy Avi Loeb is back in business.
Oh yeah. Avi's doing some good work on this. And the answer officially is absolutely not. We got too close last time.
No.
Yeah, we absolutely will, and we actually know some folks who work with Avi, so we'll check in with them as well. It is big news. Space is endlessly fascinating, and equal parts horrified. Right? When you look out into the ink and you realize how unpredictable a seemingly predictable universe can be.
Dude, did you see how close it's coming to Mars? It looks like it's doing a flyby of Mars to check how things are going down there.
Right.
It's crazy. It's 0.19 astronomical units, which is the average distance between the Earth and the Sun.
Yeah.
0.19. That's hella close.
It's very close. Also, depending on what kind of surveillance gear may or may not be aboard, just think about, the puny human surveillance gear and the ability to see billions of years into the past. So what could this thing see if it had better technology? Or it's just a random rock. And like Jorge said, we're in a very sleepy neighborhood.
That's it. That's all it is. And it's positioning the sun so that it is almost exactly between the sun is in between it and us, so that we can't fully observe it when it's doing this thing with Mars. What the hell?
Yeah.
What the hell?
I demand a refund. Yeah.
He talks like that, just like in conversation. He's like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
Tim Robbins, he's the best.
He does. Yeah. They told me that at a dinner. So we have much more to get to. You can tell we're all, as the South says, het up about solar flares and solar activity and interstellar objects. So we're going to
I think we can sum it all up with the quote from Beavis and Butthead, just to say the sun sucks.
I agree.
But it also is the source of all life and everything.
Fine.
Whatever. It's a mixed bag.
Fine. Okay, my bias is showing. Tune in to hear that. It's going to be a grab bag episode. As I was saying, there's so much more to explore. Please check out the previous episodes we mentioned. Before we sign off this evening, we do want to air an important clarification. Okay, previously on stuff they don't want you to know. In Pheromones versus Humans, we mentioned one of the big inspiration studies for what people would later call the study of human pheromones. And it was a scientist named McClintock who believed that her dorm mates in college, all of whom were female identifying, had a syncing up of schedules with their menstrual cycle. So we didn't really co-sign this, but we did have to mention that was the study that kind of launched 1,000 ships of scientific inquiry. And then later, there was this huge back and forth about not just the concept of menstrual cycles, but the concept of human pheromones overall and what role, if any, they might play in communication. Do check it out. It's a really crazy exploration that we went on. We also heard from several people like Della. Here's what you said, Della. Hi, guys, from beautiful Alaska again. I just listened to the pheromones episode and wanted to pass on the period syncing myth has been debunked. And to our note, thoroughly so. And Della, you say, here are a couple of articles. Thanks for continuing to teach and entertain. I am also, bonus credit to us from Della, I am attaching a picture of my daughter's cats, Kepler and Rocket, who definitely didn't have anything to do with our neighbor's shop fire. Free our boys. Free Kepler. Free Rocket.
Wait, but if they're arsonists, we maybe should do something about this.
How would you catch? What kind of robot animal do we build to catch a feline arsonist?
I bet a rabbit would work if it was tiny.
We've already got the rabbits.
I mean, all felines are their own kinds of arsonists, at the very least terrorists.
Yeah, exactly. They're the fire starters. So we wanted to share this because we do think it's important. When we're talking about studies, especially studies in the past that have proven controversial, we're often talking about their place in history, their place in what we call the discourse, right? Or the canon. And these kinds of studies can oftentimes be important for the inquiry they inspire, more so than their singular results or their singular conclusions. So if you want to learn more about the current state of this inquiry, you can go to places like healthline.com. There's an excellent article in The Atlantic, Why the Myth of Period Syncing Won't Go Away by Ashley Fetters. New York Times has written about this, The Myth of Period Syncing. That's by Jen Gunter. And if you want to save a little bit of time and just get the straight poop, then you can go to Snopes. And Snopes is still pretty fire at a lot of this stuff. Do menstrual cycles synchronize when women live together? Snopes considers it unproven, and the prevailing thought, which is mentioned throughout the literature, is that the conclusion of that menstrual cycles will sync up is more than likely a result of human bias and statistical coincidence. And it's a thing that, if you just look at the headline, feels like it could be true. And what we take from this, in all these examples we've explored tonight, is just because something sounds like it could be or even should be true does not make that the case. So thank you, Della, for setting the record straight. Thank you to everybody who wrote with a similar response to Della's. Thank you to the Cacoa Connoisseur, to Big Luke, the Lord of Enjoyment, and of course, the Messenger. Folks, we can't wait for you to join us on our next listener mail program. I would love to. Thank you for the invitation, you might be saying. But how, oh how, pray tell, do I join you on the air? Well, we've got not one, not two, but three ways.
It's true. The first of these ways is to find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook with our Facebook group. Here's where it gets crazy, which you can also get in on for funsies. You can also find us at that handle on X, FKA, Twitter, and on YouTube with video content galore for you to enjoy. On Instagram and TikTok, you can find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff Show.
We have a phone number. Go ahead. You got your phone already. Put this in. 1-833-STDWYTK. It's a voicemail system. When you call in, you get 3 minutes. Give yourself a cool nickname in the message and let us know in the message if we can use your name and message on the air. If you instead want to send us words in any language you choose, why not send us an email? We are
the entities who read each piece of correspondence we receive. Be well aware, yet unafraid. Sometimes the void writes back. Now consider that sort of like office hours. If you have any strange question you'd like to send us, or if you would like to drop us a line and just receive a random fact from our research with absolutely no context, then let's play some reindeer games. We're out here in the dark. Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.